Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this special edition, still part of our HR mentorship learning series. And today, I'll be teaching on how to ace case studies, focusing on HR roles. Also, even if you are not looking for a new employment, if you are not looking to change jobs, the techniques and methodologies I'll be sharing with us here tonight will help us to be able to crack assignments relating to HR. Okay, so again, my name is Oluyemi Adeosun, and sometimes people wonder, why do I do some of these things? Just very simple. I have a desire to help people, to support people. Now, many HR professionals I know, part of their desires this year is to change jobs. So one way to help them, for example, is to provide them with job opportunities. However, it's one thing to send your CV somewhere or get a professional or a friend or a mentor to share your CV with an organization. It's now another thing when you get the opportunity to interview to do well. So what I'm trying to do right now, I've met quite a number of professionals. When you interrogate them, you will know they know it, but they are not able to put their thoughts together in such a way and manner that will make them come across as if they know it. Interview can sometimes be a pressure process because some people may be anxious or nervous. Now, there are different interview techniques, which we know. It may be one-on-one or a panel interview. But increasingly in recent times, especially for senior roles, so to speak, or more senior HR roles, most organizations are adopting a scenario whereby they will sometimes give you a case study upfront. Typically, they'll give you maybe 24 hours. Some, if they are more generous, okay, they give you 48 hours. And then you will prepare the presentation, and then you will come and make a presentation. Okay, so we'll see some of these things quickly. I'll also at some point allow for comments and contributions or experience sharing. And then I'll also allow for questions. Maybe you want to ask specific questions. All right, so we'll go through this journey together. Again, let me just put this out there. It's not as if after I've taught you this and after we share this knowledge, doesn't mean that the next case study interview you do, you will pass. No, sometimes some of these things takes practice and learning. But I assure you, based on this session tonight, your chances of acing any HR case study will improve significantly. I can give you a guarantee of 50%, if not more, just to be conservative. But much more importantly, whether you have interview or not, do me a favor. Be deploying these approaches to your HR issues so that when you are now giving a case study, it will be part and parcel of you. So again, even if you are not looking for a job, these techniques will help you. So at the end of today's session, okay, that's just by way of an introduction, we'll look at having a good understanding of case studies, why hiring managers make use of case studies, okay, what to do before a case study, proactiveness before a case study. We'll look at relevant HR design models and framework, and we'll also look at profiling bespoke solutions for organizational performance. Time permitting, we'll also look at some case studies so that we can really flesh it. Are we together? So a case study, all right, is a scenario typically in a professional context. Let me just say this. More often than not, when most organizations give candidates a case study, it's typically a mirror of their reality. So you need to know that. Very few organizations will just create a case study that does not really and truly Okay, I apologize for that break in transmission. Is due to network issues from my end. Okay, all right. So I was trying to say that case studies typically simulate, mirror, or reflect real-life situations or challenges or opportunities of an organization. Yes, they might have changed the names modify some of the context. So always approach a case study, one, knowing that it is true and it is real. I can't afford you to think this is an exaggeration. Can this be true? Because once you know it is true, the way you will approach it will differ. Okay, so in many cases, the scenario or case study involves a number of issues or problems that must be dealt with within a professional workplace. Okay, case study assignments may require the participants, the candidates, to demonstrate their developing knowledge of what? Theories and professional practices and policies. And we'll typically expect you to be able to make recommendations, both short-term, medium-term, and long-term. So let's make progress. One, case studies seek to get to know the depth and breadth of an applicant's thought process. Please pay attention. A case study wants to see or appreciate the depth and the breadth of your thought process. In other words, can you think far and wide? Most of the time, a problem may not have just one solution. A problem may have multiple root causes. So can you identify all the root causes, for example, and then can you prioritize the root causes to be able to determine in order of priority and then prefer solutions? Okay, so don't be tempted to, for example, think there is just one problem. There may be 5 problems. There may be 10 problems. So in the chat box, okay, just chat that you can hear me if you can. I need to confirm. Somebody dropped a message. So if you can hear me, just say, yes, I can hear you. So one, case studies seek to get to know the depth and breadth of an applicant's thought process, a candidate. 2, case studies are also an easy way to allow the panelists or the interviewees to simulate a real-life scenario. And that's one of the reasons why most organizations, when they give you case study, they give you a very, very short notice and they may give you multiple questions. There are some organizations, and I've participated in 1 or 2 as a candidate and as a panelist, where you already be in the interview room, we will now give you the case study, and you will have maybe 30 minutes or 1 hour to deal with it. Okay. 3, case studies help the recruiter see how the applicant reacts in a stressful context and how they can deal with challenges and approach a task. Now, let me shock you. Sometimes in reality, you may have 3, 4, 5 important issues almost simultaneously. How are you going to react to this? I hope you are following me. I'm building a case so that you can get it fully. Now, the first thing, which is very important, what do you do before the case study comes? Or before you are given a case study? First and foremost, so this is day 1. Maybe you've not even submitted your application anywhere, or you've submitted to a couple of organizations, but you've not gotten any feedback yet. You need to start preparing now. First and foremost, you must understand the entire HR value chain. The entire HR value chain fundamentals. Just to keep it simple, if I say there are 3 core HR value chains, just to keep it simple, how to attract employees, how to retain employees, how to motivate employees. Just to keep it very simple, I'll broaden it in a bit. Again, 3 simple things: how to attract employees, how to retain employees, and how to motivate employees. If I would limit HR to 3 things. But of course, we know that there are more. So you can say from recruitment, in no particular order now, recruitment, onboarding, performance management, training and development, employee engagement, compensation and benefit, and so on and so forth until exit, retirement. In between two, you could have disciplinary management and so on and so forth. Having a mindset around the value chain will help you when you are looking at a question to say which HR domain can play a part in resolving this issue. I hope you are following me. 2, you must have an appreciation of the labor loss. 3 levels to here or 2. the labor law of Nigeria, if you're a Nigerian, or the countries you are overseeing, some of us can be HRBP, West Africa, that kind of a thing. The labor law of the country or countries under your purview, or that the case is situated. 2, you should have some appreciation for international labor organizations, rule conventions, ILO. You should have a general appreciation. 3, you should also have an appreciation of general HR best practices. Because as you are profiling solutions to case study, you must put ethics in context. You don't want to profile a solution that will negate ethics, or that will negate a labor law, or that will negate a reasonable man's test. 3, you should also almost always approach any case study with the business and the business strategy in mind. So if you get the case study from the banking sector, you must put on a banker's cap. If you get the case study is about insurance, or it's about oil and gas, you must put on an insurer or oil and gas person's cap. Don't forget that for HR to be effective, you must first of all immerse yourself in the industry and then in the organization, so that your solutions can be bespoke. Please, if you are following me and you are getting value, just type something in the chat box. Give me some energy. 4, now these points I'm giving you are not necessarily in any particular order. It's how it came to me, and that's why I'm passing it. 4, you should also be abreast of recent trends and issues. Recent trends and issues. Let's just do a 1-minute check here. Please, don't be afraid to write the wrong thing. In the chat box, just in your opinion, can you mention some recent trends and issues quickly in the chat box that you know? Okay, let's see if we can get a few. Now, at almost every point in time, there are trends and issues. Chances are, when you go for an interview, chances are those recent trends and issues should be part of what will inform your solution. Thank you so much, Sars and Mas. Let me quickly mention some of the things I'm seeing. So I'll only mention one. If I say a duplication, I won't mention it, so forgive me. So, for example, my Oga, Abayomi Agiri says, Naira availability. It's very recent and it's contemporary. So I can imagine you do a case study today, and somehow you are able to look that into the conversation. That tells the panelists that you are on ground. You know what is happening. Okay. Another person, Madam Oluyemi Adeosun says, Japa syndrome. So imagine you are speaking to attrition. You are speaking to talent retention. If you don't connect it to Japa, you have not spoken at all, or you have not started speaking. Okay. Again, Abayomi Agiri mentions another tropical thing, fuel. Very beautiful. No, here Jennifer mentions remote work. In other words, flexi working, employer branding. Okay. Feishayo, very, very beautiful. Says headcount reduction in tech space. So other people like Henry says wrongful termination, yes. Somebody said macro managing, yes. Brain drain, employee resignation. We're in the employee resignation era. Fantastic. We've gotten a drift around it. So by the time you're approaching any case study, quickly note all these recent trends and issues, because they will most likely define how you will approach some of the solutions, and it will make your solutions comprehensive. Now, I also know this here, and it's important. Please be calm and do not panic. Sometimes when I review people's case study, whether as a panelist or as a friend, you will know that this person knows way more than they have written down. But because they are fidgeting, they are anxious, you need to be calm. Just imagine you're a surgeon. You can't be fidgeting and be operating a patient. You need to be calm, no matter the turbulence. Next, you need to do your research on the organization itself. So by the time you are getting a case study, or before you get a case study you have applied, begin to do some basic desk research about the organization, the company, the industry. Why? The more you know about the organization, the more you know about the industry, the better you'll be able to understand the questions, case study questions, and the better you'll be able to situate your responses and answers. Now, if you are privileged to know the panel, so there are some instances, not every time, you will hear something like you at your interview, okay, you'll be meeting with A, B, C, D. Quickly research some of these people. Now, what does that do for you? So imagine one of the people that is going to be on the panel is a risk manager, or is a risk supervisor, or is a risk coordinator or risk director. Some of your answers must, put risk factors into consideration. That's the way to win over that man's heart. If the CFO or a finance person is on the panel, how things like budgeting, cost, funding must reflect in your answer. That's the way to win over the heart of the finance representative. Are you following me? Now, sometimes, and I'm saying this respectfully, sometimes we say people are biased. Yes, should people be biased? No. But you can also use people's bias to your advantage. So once you know somebody has affinity towards something, find something relevant from their affinity and use it to enrich your work. You are softly winning them over to your side. Okay? Now, always use models and frameworks as a base for profiling solutions. I'll say that again for emphasis. Always use models and framework as a base for solution. Now, permit me to say this. You see, when they taught us in primary school mathematics, if you look at it very well, they were not teaching us just numbers, arithmetic, and so on and so forth. They were actually teaching us logic. They were teaching us how to organize. Let me give you an example. In mathematics, very early in primary school, they taught us a concept, very simple concept, but very powerful concept. That concept is called collect like terms. I'll say that again. Collect like terms. Now, so if they tell you that, mention the issues that affect a particular situation, and you mention it, you typically mention it or write it down as it is coming to your mind. But after you have written them down, what should you do next? You should collect like terms and reorder it so that there's a flow. Are we together? So something as simple as collection of like terms will help you to see whether there are patterns, okay, whether there are things that have similar solutions or similar root causes. Okay, so models, for all of us here, we went to the university, polytechnic, tertiary institutions. Some of the things our lecturers were struggling to teach us, they were teaching us theory. Theories are built on empirical facts, and it helps us to what? Organize our thoughts. So I'll go to models in detail in a short while, but follow me. I just needed to mention it about now. Next, you need to read the case and associated questions carefully. Now, this is my personal opinion. Don't just read a case and begin to answer it. If you can you read the case like 3 times? So just take your mind back to our secondary school days when we used to do comprehension, when they would give us like an essay and they would give us questions. If you read the question once and you begin to answer the questions, and you read it like 3 times before you begin to read the questions, it's not the same thing. Let me give you another hack. Another option would be, before you read the case, first of all, read the question. In other words, what do they want you to do? What do they want you to look out for? When you read the questions first, and then you read the, so to speak, the case itself, you will be able to get more insight. So read the case and associated questions carefully. 2, highlight the main point of the case and any issues that you can identify. So have in your hand a biro and paper, or if you are typing for the typing generation, as you are reading the case, if anything occurs to you, note it down. Okay? Read the questions closely, analyze what you are required to do, then read the case again, linking the information that is relevant to each question you have been asked. Again, you may want to ask yourself some questions, some of which will include, what actions were taken in this case? What were the steps that were taken? Were these actions the most appropriate, and why? Okay, what are the consequences of any of these actions? All right, was anything omitted or not considered? Were actions and procedures in line with existing codes of practice, policy, or theories? I'll ask that last question again. Were actions or procedures in line with existing codes of practice, policy, or theories? Are we together? All right. So let's go straight to the model so that we can put more energy in this work. Now, the first model here is ADDIE model. I have a feeling almost everybody on this call is aware about it. But just in case if I have 4 or 5 friends who are not, let me just explain it in a bit. Now, one of the places where this ADDIE model is very popular is typically in learning and development. So those of our colleagues who specialize or who are very knowledgeable and vast with respect to learning and development typically use this ADDIE model to come up with learning and training interventions. Now, ADDIE is a, how do I say this now? It's an acronym, yes. A stands for what? Analysis. D for design. The second D for development. I for implementation. E for what? Evaluation. Now, in other words, when you have a case study or any problem, what is your first assignment? In other words, so even if you are not doing interview, you are just faced with a situation or challenge on the job in HR. The first thing you need to do is analysis. What is the situation? What is the problem? What should be the reality? What's the gap? Some people call it gap analysis. Do that. Then you can now move on to, based on your analysis, make informed decisions to design the best possible solutions. Okay, then you can now develop the solutions and then you implement. Then this is very important. Once you do this, it will typically stand you apart from most of the other candidates you are competing for the job opportunities with. You must build evaluation into your solution. So don't just say, oh, this is the problem, this is the solution, the short-term aspect of the solution, the medium-term aspect, and the long-term. You should say things like, maybe after 1 month, we will review the solution to see if it's achieving the required objectives. If yes, we will reinforce it. If no, we will make adjustments. Once you are talking to a senior person or group of senior people, once they see that you have factored the evaluation into your case study solution, they know that you know that we do not always get things right 100% the first time. And as we proceed in a journey, we get new insights, and because we are conscious of evaluation, we will make adjustments. So that's ADDIE model. So you can just have ADDIE somewhere, and as you profile your solution, you will see which aspect is for analysis, which aspect is for design, which aspect is for development, which aspect is the implementation, which aspect is the what? Evaluation. We'll still see 1 or 2 things here. Another one, I picked this concept from project management. I'm sure it may be applicable in other areas too, but it is the PDCA model. Again, please, you don't need to use multiple models. 1 model is okay. I'm just showing you different models because they may have they may be useful in certain contexts more than the other context. Okay, that's left for you to decide. So the PDCA model, P stands for plan, D, do, C, check, A, act. So for plan, set goals and objectives, set processes, plan improvement and change. Then do speaks to what? Implementing the process or implementing change. C, which is check, stands for what? Tracking, monitoring performance, checking for deviations. and A, act, you take corrective and preventive actions. You can already begin to see a reasonable level of similarity between PDCA model and the ADI model. Let's quickly go to another model. This one is very popular, but it's so popular yet some people don't use it. Please feel free to use the popular SWOT framework. Okay, SWOT means strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. Okay, so generally speaking, strengths is what do you do well? Are we together? Weakness, where do we need to improve? Opportunities, what are our goals? Threats, what obstacles do we face? So just imagine you have a blank sheet of paper, you divide it into 4 quadrants. As you are reading the case study, anything that is a strength, you put it in that part of the quadrant. Anything that is a weakness, you put it in that part of the quadrant. Anything that's a threat, you write it there. Anything that is an opportunity, you put it there. Then you have what? A balanced approach to solving the situation. So this will possibly be the last framework I will use. But before I give us this framework, let me mention another framework that is not on my slide and is intentional. I assume we all know it, but it just dawned on me that 1 or 2 people may need it. So there's this popular David Ulrich model, and it has 4 quadrants, and it speaks to HR as a business partner, okay, HR as a change agent, HR as an employee champion, okay, what's the 4th one? HR as an administrative expert. You can also use those 4 quadrants, draw it, put it on a sheet of paper or in a PowerPoint or in an Excel sheet, create the 4 segments: HR business partner, change agent, employee champion, okay, administrative expert. And as you are reading the case, put your solutions or your observations in these quadrants. Now, what does a model do for you? I mentioned it earlier, but I need to say it again. A model helps you to be robust. A model helps you to think end to end. A model ensures you don't forget or omit any critical points or perspective. So don't rely on your own understanding. Don't trust your memory that you will remember. Once you have a framework and you are using it and you speak adequately to this framework, chances are you will not leave any stone untouched. Again, are we getting value so far this night? Just drop 1 or 2 thoughts. It may be interesting. If you have any lessons you are picking or ideas, drop them in the chat box. It will be also useful for people on the call. Now, the last model or framework I will just mention quickly, which I also have a feeling that a good number of people here know, is the very popular McKinsey 7S framework. McKinsey 7S framework. And the 7S, S as in S, so they are like acronyms for 7 things. I'll mention them in no particular order. Strategy, okay, skills, staff or employees, style, systems, structure, and shared values. Now, what do we mean when we say strategy? What should we do to solve this specific problem? That's strategy. How are we approaching the problem? Structure. What structure do we need to execute the strategy? So for every strategy, you need a structure to execute effectively the strategy. Systems. What system do we need to use or develop to also execute the strategy? So you can see how important strategy is. Style. What leadership style or approach and cultural qualities will assist us to achieve the strategic objectives? Are you with me? Staff or employees or talent or workers. How do we assist our managers in their skill and knowledge growth? Skills. What specific skills or competencies, okay, do we need to develop? And the 7th, but not the least, shared values. What of our values and principles, would they support us What do we need to do? What do we need to change in terms of our value system? Now, there is no way you will apply this 7S to a case study that you won't get a robust solution. In other words, part of the solution will be people related. Part of the solution will be managerial related. Part of the solution will be system related. Part of the solution will be structure related. Part of the solution will be strategy related. How would you approach a case study using this framework and you won't have anything to say and you will be blank? Are you with me? So these are some of the models and frameworks. There are many more, but I just say let me drop these 4 or 5 this evening so that we can approach case studies for interview, or even much more importantly, approach any HR problem in our office like this. By the time you crack a situation like this, and you put something together as a draft, and you send it to the chief human resource officer, or you send it to your CEO or whoever you report to, because you have used a model, they are not going to not appreciate that you have thought through. Okay, and these are part of the benefits of framework. If you know any other framework that you think is good, please drop it in the chat box. I could learn from it, or if I have the opportunity to discuss this at other fora another time, I could incorporate it. Maybe something you have done. As we move on, it is very important we always link theory to practice. So this particular one may interest our slightly more junior HR people who maybe for one reason or the other, we don't have a lot of work experience, but you've done your CIPM, for example, and they taught you different theories and concepts. Let me be real with you. 99.9% of those theories can be used in practice. In fact, those theories were deduced from practice. You know, some of us think theory and practice are not the same. I beg to disagree. I'm working on a PhD. I have 42 published papers, so I know 1 or 2 things about theory. Theory can be deduced from practice. Even if theory came from theory, if it is deep, okay, they will adopt it in practice. Let me give you 1 or 2 theories. Does anybody on this call remember theory X and theory Y? Theory X and theory Y. Theory X, for example, says employees don't want to work and they need to be forced and coerced. Theory Y says, no, employees want to work. They enjoy working. I think that's the McGregor's theory. Now, if you go through all the 5 or 6 main areas of those theories, you can go to work tomorrow and begin to apply it. The first thing is your employees, you profile them. Mr. X and Mr. Chukudi, is he a theory X or a theory Y employee? Mr. Oluyemi, is he a theory X or a theory Y employee? By the time you partition your employees, you categorize them into either theory X and theory Y. Suddenly, the kind of motivation you will need to deploy to those categories of staff will jump at you. Come on, tell me that that theory is not useful. Meanwhile, if my memory serves me right, this theory X and Y is as old as 1950 something or 1960 something. Very useful. So never take any theory. Just look for this theory. How can you apply it, or what part of it can you apply? Okay, everything may not be useful, but they are useful. Once you bring these things to bear, you are already thinking straight and you are coasting home to a beautiful solution. So because of time, let's move on. You have used all these models, you have read the questions, you have identified the solutions, you've collected like terms, then you put it together. Okay, now, some of the time, so let me quickly put this out there. So when you are doing a case study for an organization, let's say interview, most of the time, they will tell you how they want their case study. In other words, they can specify and say, in PowerPoint. I've even seen some that will say, PowerPoint, not more than 5 slides. PowerPoint, not more than 10 slides. Please don't do over-sabi. Follow the instruction to the letter. They should not ask you for PowerPoint and say, oh, no, I'm a guru in Excel. Notes, give it as they want it. They may have a reason So, for example, I've done a case study somewhere before, and they specified that I should do the case study in Word. I was almost frustrated. That who does a case study in Word? How do you present that, for example, to the panel? But I guess they were also testing. Do you have the capacity to follow instruction? I've also seen case studies before that they will say use Excel. There are also case studies that will say question 1 and 2, PowerPoint, question 3 and 4, Word, question 5, Excel. The important thing is to follow instruction. As much as possible, when you are putting forward your answers and solutions, okay, try and use a table, serial number, action points, or initiatives. You can have other columns like outcomes, like stakeholders, like budgets. When you use the table, it lets your thought flow clearly, and it's easier to read, and let your ideas flow. Please, as much as possible. I know you may be in a hurry, maybe just have 24 hours or just have 2 hours to do the case study. Also focus on aesthetics, okay? That's why at this level, no matter how basic, improve your PowerPoint skills, for example, or your formatting skills on Word, or even on Excel. You can beautify, what a friend of mine will say, jazz it up. Let's jazz up the presentation. Two people may say the same thing, but your packaging may be a unique selling point. Let me quickly give you this app. So let's assume you are doing the presentation and it is for Zenith Bank. It's a no-brainer. Let red be your predominant color. You are doing it for Fidelity. I believe that their own is green. You are doing it for GT. I think if I remember, their own is orange. So most speak to their brand essence. Are you following me? You go for some case study based on the ambience, the aesthetics alone. You can begin to see people who move to the next level. Okay, so even if you are presenting something to a customer, a client, use that. Then your fonts, don't let it be. If you are doing PowerPoint, for example, don't write it like Word. Don't let it be tiny. 30 font size, those kind of things. The font size, the font type, let it be visible. Now, there are some small things people neglect, but it shows you pay attention to details. Things like page number, as simple as it is, half of the people will not put a page number. Why? They are in a hurry. Put it. In fact, when I start doing case study, before I even start to answer, I'll have inserted page number. So as I move from page to page or slide to slide, the page numbering will continue. Things like title page, your name, those kind of things. I've seen case studies before, except that maybe they save the case study with the name of the person, you won't know. Some people say they will attach a case study solution to their email. The moment you download the case study, it becomes anonymous. There is no name of the presenter. Please don't make this kind of mistakes. So applicable, you can add also relevant quotes, okay? All right, so solving the case study problem. Let me give you some additional tips. Now, there are different scenarios, so I need you to hear me clearly, and I also need to hear what I am not saying. So there are some case studies you will be expected to do it alone. If that is the requirement, please don't do what we call Voltron. Don't collaborate. But there are some case studies, they don't care if you collaborate or not. So, for example, if you are allowed, you can access Google, search for similar case study solutions or situations, if it is allowed. Do you understand? If there's nothing prohibiting you from doing that, but be sure of the ethics surrounding your case study. So if you have a problem at work, nothing is stopping you from using Google, reaching out on HR professional forums or your friends to ask for support if they are a chance to help you at that point in time. Touch base with your friends, especially people who have different perspectives. Now, I need to say this again. You know that sometimes, some of us, our friends are people that we are agreeable with. So to some extent, our thought process and those of most of our friends align. I'm not talking about those kind of friends. Do you remember your friend that always sees things in a different way? Or a friend that always argues with you? They may be more useful to you in a case study than a friend that is agreeable. Why? When you speak to 2, 3 of those kind of friends who typically have different perspectives than yours, it means you'll be able to extract all the dimensions of the case study. You'll also be able to profile solutions from a multiple dimension. Do you understand? So do you see the value of having people who sometimes you may think they are difficult? They have their value. Okay. Next, always respond directly to questions. Speak like you are the one solving it. Don't use like third party. Don't say they should. Don't say we would. If they say you solve the question, say I own the solution, except they tell you to maybe discuss from a team perspective, okay, which typically may not be the case in an individual case study. Are you following me? Now, feel free to explore and put down your imaginations, okay? Ideas you have had before that day, try and use them. Try and use them. Also ask questions, which part of the HR value chain speaks to this thing, okay? Now, I mentioned this earlier, but let me just show it. So this is an example of a table you can use. What are the objectives? What are the tasks? Success criteria, timeline, resources and budgets, and then impact. This kind of simple framework helps you to dimension the case study or problem or situation properly, and you will also be able to resolve it and resource it holistically. Okay, all right. So if you are using MS Word, there typically should be an introduction, then the body, okay, and then the conclusion. Try, if you have time, create it, edit, proofread, and make sure you submit. Let me just say this also. If it's a case study for a job opportunity, be mindful of the time frame. So if they tell you to submit by 11 o'clock a.m., don't try and submit 11 on the dot. Your own 11 may be 3 minutes slower or faster. Just do like 5 or 10 minutes before. Also, we are in an international era now. Maybe you are submitting to a job in Ghana or Canada or something. Be sure of time difference so that you follow the time difference when you are submitting. Please don't let village people follow you. Now beg at the beg. All right. So what's the problem? How will you solve the problem? How will you sustain the solution? How will you evaluate the impact? What is the problem or problems? How will you solve the problem? Note this particular important point. How will you sustain the solution? Many people attempt to solve the problem, but few people attempt to look for sustaining the solutions or having sustainable solutions. So don't just go for the quick fix only, look for sustainability. Okay, are you following me? How will you also evaluate impact? In other words, performance management, KPIs. How would you track that you are what? You are on course. Let me also say there's a proverb in Yoruba. I'll say it in Yoruba and say it in English to the best of my ability. It says, you need to improve your communication skills. In other words, if you are not able to talk, you may be turning towards poverty. That's one of the reasons why 11 years ago I joined Toastmasters. I'm happy I can see one of my DTMs on this call, the DTM Femi Kolajo. That's why we joined, so that we can sharpen our communication skills. So if two of us know the same thing at the same level, but you are more articulate than me, guess what? You will appear better than me. So now I know some of us may be naturally gifted with communication. No matter how good you are, become better. No matter how bad you are, improve your communication. That may be the difference between you getting a 15 million job offer and a 32 million job offer. May our eloquence or lack of it not rub off of monumental blessings. I hope somebody will type amen there. Okay, now, after you have submitted the case study, perhaps they've reviewed it, you've scaled through, they've now invited you to the organization to come and make the presentation. Now, note that speaking to your slide is a slightly different ballgame. Now, don't make the mistake of going to that office or boardroom, or maybe it's an online meeting, and you are now reading the slide. For example, for those of us who joined the presentation from the beginning today, you will see instances where I was reading the slide, you will see instances where I was speaking to the slide. You need to show that that case study solution that you wrote it yourself, not Voltron, not Oluyemi and his friends. Are we together? Now, speak to the slides. Tell a captivating story. Ask rhetorical, thought-provoking question. Use statistics, quotes, headlines. Okay, you can even use images or pictures. You can use a prop or visual aid. You can even play a short video, depending on the scenario. But speak to the slide as if there's no slide, as if you are the presentation. Don't forget that that PowerPoint slide is actually a visual aid. A visual aid. It is not the presentation. So let me also say this, because at least 50% of my audience are Nigerians living in Nigeria. Prepare. There may be power outage. When electricity goes, don't stop presenting. Continue to speak, except the organizer says, hold on, gentlemen. Hold on, my lady. Wait, let them restore light. When you keep speaking to it, it shows that you have mastery over the presentation. Okay, so the slide is not a clutch. Okay, all right. So again, things to consider when presenting the case study. Remember the objective. What's the subject? What's the target? What are the target audience? What is the place? Also, what's the duration of presentation? Is it 10 minutes? Is it 30 minutes? Is it 1 hour? Make sure you speak to all the areas within the allotted time. Don't spend, if there are 3 areas, don't spend 90% of the time in only one area. Are you with me? Are we together? Okay. And whether it's a formal or informal setup, make sure you give a well-structured delivery. Also make note as pointers, do not read the entire presentation. Use relevant visual aids. Keep it simple. Okay, again, I've mentioned some of these things. Be careful. You can use animations, but don't overdo it. All right. Things like effects, do spelling check, be consistent with your slides. Okay. Appropriate body language. So I don't know, some of us here can testify. Maybe you've been in 1 or 2 interviews before, and they will say something like, that presenter was dull. That presenter didn't have energy. Okay, so you need to study where you're going. If they like people who are animated, you also want to be animated. If they would like people who are, so to speak, calm, with a gentle, body posture, you also want to then look at them. So how are they doing? Okay, you don't want to come across as if you are not passionate. You don't have energy. Okay, so listen to body language, show respect. Now, I'm saying this with respect. My Generation Z, you know that I love you guys back to the moon, but please show respect. Let me quickly share one real life story right here. My friend is not on this call tonight. We both went for an interview. This was about 7 years ago in Abuja. It was for a Central Bank of Nigeria subsidiary. So on that panel, there were like 7 people, 2 people from Ministry of Finance, 2 people from CBN, 3 people from the parastatal, and 1 person from Ministry of National Planning. To cut the long story short, the youngest person on that panel was like 51. One of our colleagues, we became friends. We met each other in Abuja, entered the interview room. His opening sentence, and I'll say it, said, "Good morning, guys, ladies and gentlemen. Believe you me," that was the end of the interview. Now, don't get me wrong. If I'm in a panel and you greet me, "Good morning, guy," me, I no go vex. Me, I no go para. But somebody went for a CBN interview and greeted the panel members, "Good morning, guys." That was the end. So what am I saying? Especially I know somebody who's 40 or 50 will not make that mistake. Except all the people on the panel are exactly yoppy like you. Here on the side of being overtly respectful and cautious. After you have gotten the job, you can be chopping knuckles. But get the job first, be very polite. Just imagine you are speaking to the King of England. I doubt you will see King Charles and say, "Good morning, guy." Just be formal. Okay, maintain eye contact. Perception is key, and so on and so forth. Let me say, again, be prepared. Most likely during or after the questions, okay, or your presentation, they can come back to you and ask follow-up questions, ask for clarity, or ask that you expatiate, or even want to modify the process. Like play would use about 15 minutes. So I can conveniently stop here, But if we want, I have 5 questions. We can discuss all of them or 1 or 2 of them. So let me just, what do you think? Who has any thoughts or any questions or any contribution? Now, the questions I have for you are showing on the screen right now. If you want us to, for example, say, answer just 1 of them. So let's take a vote. In the chat box, type which of the questions that I'm reflecting right now do you want us to answer? So the majority question will carry the day. Even though we can discuss everything, but it's not necessary. We just take 1 or at most 2. Again, if you have a contribution, okay, have a comment, you want to share a story, or you want to say something that will add value in the light of today's conversation, raise your hands, and I will unmute you, or my co-host for tonight will unmute you. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you. We are all busy people. So I can already see question 2. Okay, so I will take the question 2. So I can already see question 2. Okay, and because question 2 also got 2 responses quickly. Oh, multiple people have chosen question 2. So let me read the question 2 now. Question 2. A manager in your company has higher attrition rates than the rest of the business, and through exit feedback, you know it is because of their management style. How would you address and manage this situation? Now, before I show you how I will address it or what I put together, is there anybody who wants to raise their hand and tell us what they will do? I have an answer, I will show it, and I'm not saying my answer is the best answer or is the only answer. So is there anybody on this call who would like to attempt to just respond to question 2 quickly before I show? What I'll appreciate that is so that we also see diversity of thoughts and approaches to situation. Okay, while I wait for anyone to raise their hand, let me, because of time, let me go to my answer, okay? And this is my thought, so it's not like it's the marking scheme, but just my thoughts. Okay, now, look at the 9 things I put here together. So everything I put here is from me. Again, it may not be holistic. So one of the things you will do for me tonight is either you raise your hand or you type it in the chat box, what you will do differently or extra, okay? Don't tell me what I've written is okay, please. This not, I'm not a politician, okay? So the first thing I will do is that I will have an informal engagement with the manager. That's the first thing I'll do. Note my choice of word, informal engagement, not formal. Because once you make it formal, people become defensive, edgy, and the likes. Next, I will fix time for a structured what session with him. This time, this will be formal. And I will show collected exit data for the department, showing employee average stay, their reason for exit, and so on and so forth. In other words, I will extract data from the exit interview, maybe do a table, a chart, a graph, also showing data of other line managers like him who manage other units of comparable size. Data. You can see the thought process. You can see gap analysis. You can see how to think. 3, I will what? Engage current team members for feedback on the impact of the manager's leadership style. Don't forget that the data I have is from employees who have already gone, employees that have jackpot. There are still some employees who are with him, maybe because they are stranded or because they are coping somehow or the other. So we'll engage with them to ask for their thoughts and their opinion. Are we together? 4, I will identify the root cause of the high attrition from the manager's perspective. What do I mean? The manager now, under whom we appear to be losing a lot of staff, who will ask him that, sir, sincerely, in your own opinion, why do you think people are leaving? Believe me, you may have some genuine points. You can say, oh, this is a fast-paced environment. Some of these employees are laid back. You can say, oh, I like attention to details. some of these people are slothful, you sincerely, with an open mind, want to listen to him. I will now also emphasize the impact of attrition on the company and the impact on the manager's performance. 6, I will secure the manager's buy-in and propose intervention around the areas of identified gaps. 7, I will arrange for support for the manager. Some of these supports will include, but not limited to, coaching, even mentoring, training, psychometric assessments, maybe to even know his kind of personality type, the strength and the weakness associated with it. 8, I will also commit to working with the manager on the same and set timelines for review. Can you see that? Evaluation, timelines for review. It's not open-ended, maybe once a month, once a quarter. 9, last but not the least, I will ensure I have a continuous review of the attrition record of the manager's team going forward. Please, don't tell me this is comprehensive and this is holistic. What else would you do? What else would you do? Anyone, please. Anyone, please. What else would you like to do based on the question and based on the solution? Anyone, please. Thank you again, everyone, for joining this call. So at this intersection, I'm open to contributions, comments, or clarification. Okay, or just want to share your experience before we call it a night. I've seen very senior people here on this call. I'm completely humbled that you joined. I'm tempted to ask one or two of you privately, say, why did you come here? So I will take my colleague, my sister, my friend, Deborah Dumbiri. I pray it is not a question. I am praying.
Well done, sir. Yes, so I was following through. I wanted to say that this point 3, for me, I would not like to engage in it. Then I would not add what I would have done better. So this engagement of the current team member might not give you what you really like, because at the end of the day, they are afraid for their job. So they don't know if you are going to be really confidential and if it cost them their job, or if it make them victimize, if it make the manager victimize them as well. So what I would do again, apart from not doing this number 3, is to get feedback from other colleagues of the same line of this manager. So feedback on how he is in meetings, how he treats his own fellow colleagues, because that feedback is also important. So he might be someone who is so the same way the team members that are jackparing, the same thing they are saying is what his own co-colleagues are also saying. So I would like to get that. Thank you, sir.
Okay, would that be all, Deborah? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. While you are yet speaking, my Oga Bayomi Agiri used an HR word to describe one of the solutions she profiled. He said a 360-degree feedback will help, which includes managers who are his peers, people who are above it. Thank you so much, Deborah. And also, my brother and colleague, Oluyemi Adeosun, says, I will also follow up with the manager to monitor impact of the intervention and adjust accordingly. Now, you mentioned something, Deborah, that I want to react with. Note, I'm not contesting the point. You said that you will not do solution 3. And solution 3 is engage current team members for feedback. And why did you say you will not do solution 3? You say there may be trust issues. People may not feel that that confidentiality will be something they can count on. Now, if you will not do number 3 because of the reasons you have put forward, then you should also find a solution. That is another problem. So your solution should say, I will have done this, but because of this, I won't do it. Now profile solutions to enshrine confidentiality in the team and also to win over trust. Do you get what I'm saying, man? So if that your thought is valid, you should also have a solution to make sure that going forward, because it will not be sustainable to be operating a system where there is no trust, or where people think if I speak to HR, that there can be a backlash. So it's a valid problem, but I wish you also provide a solution to that. And that's how to approach case studies. Okay, I didn't think about that problem. That's why I didn't solve it. You thought about it, but you ran away from it. I thank you so much, Deborah, for your response. So my friend and sister here, Nohe Jennifer says, describe different leadership styles to employees and how they can work best with each of the styles. Fantastic, Nohe. This is spot on. So maybe have a training session for the employees or the unit members, show them the different leadership styles, show them the strengths and weaknesses and how best to work. I didn't think about this. So do you see where collaboration? So if you are doing something, don't just hide it or conceal. If it is not unethical in your context to seek counsel from other people. And I'm so proud that you guys are bringing these solutions for, because I would have been very sad if everybody just says all correct. What do I really know? Okay, I'm just a facilitator. Okay, any other contributions or comments, or do you want us to look at one more question? Again, I'll need to see multiple responses validating that. If not, I think we have had a long day. We've done 1 hour, and this may be a very convenient area to stop. Thank you so much, DTM, Distinguished Toastmaster Femi Kolajo, member, Chartered Institute of Personnel Management. So let me quickly read. So let's keep the comments coming. It may even be very fantastic. We just end on that question too, so that we make it very robust and we close out, because that will be holistic in my opinion. So DTM Femi Kolajo says, what else can I do? Not necessarily with the same manager. Rather, I will find a way to share the key learning points with other managers to prevent the virus from spreading to their departments. Oga, thumbs up. This is deep. In other words, is saying that this isolated challenge, I will use the learning and turn it to a company-wide solution. God bless you, sir. This is very deep. Thank God that Oga did not go for the interview together. They will have chosen Oga. That's the even more superior answer. Thank you so much. Let me say what Reverend Olakomi Amawoni Dundu, who is an elected council member, a member of the governing council of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management. Again, I'm happy you are here. I'm humbled by your humility. Thank you so much for your leadership. He says it will also what? Managing your manager training. Managing your manager's training for employees. Fantastic. In other words, it will institute a training for line reports on how to manage their managers and different techniques, styles, and approach. Thank you so much. Very beautiful solution that I didn't think about. Let me also, yes, thank you so much about the agri said managing your boss. Peace, Mirabel Chibuike says, I will also recommend job rotation to see if the manager is the problem or the employees. This will work if it is not in a very specialized area. But sincerely, please, this idea did not occur to me. So I'm being open and vulnerable here. This is a very possible solution. I didn't even fathom it. So if the role, let's assume that maybe they are in finance department and they have different units and the managers have competencies and they can conveniently rotate, you may want to rotate him to another subunit and see if it will carry the attrition there. Beautiful. Let me see. Is there anybody who wants to talk? Apart from Deborah, who has spoken? Okay. Anybody wants to share experience? So let me just say again that to the over 60 people at some points who joined this call tonight, thank you. Let me just allow for the last and final time, Deborah Dumbere. Over to you, Ma.
Yes, sir. So I'm currently facing this problem. So I'm really happy that I'm on this call, because nobody will have told me that this happened, this particular topic. So one of my line managers are actually, people are resigning under him. So it's really, I'm so happy. And funny enough, he's not a Nigerian, and I've gotten solutions from here. You know, even if I spoke about one, and I'm going to use everything that you have spoke about, really is a concern. So each time, and when they resign, the way he would even relate with me to say, HR, we need people. We need to. The way you will be rushing me, I was like, maybe this is how you are relating to your people, that they are living, everybody's just living under you. What's your problem? Calm down. There's time for everything. Your time has not even got to each time people are living under you, only you. So it's frustrating. So I would really have learned a lot from this. Yes, so I've learned a lot. That's what I wanted to say, that I'm facing this currently.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. The last point I would take, which is very important, again from Abayomi Agiri, thank you so much. Very beautiful point. He said attrition can also be a KPI for managers, which is good, because once you start measuring it from that perspective, managers will not have a choice but to pay attention to it. Very, very valid point, sir. Thank you so much. All right. I think this is a convenient point to end this session. As always, we will upload it on the YouTube channel and share the link widely. So you may share this with any of your friends, your mentees, anyone you think can benefit. You don't need, I tell people, you don't necessarily need to have 5 interview opportunities. If you have 1 or 2 and you do very well, we can pop champagne with you and celebrate. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Please, let's enjoy the rest of our night. Thank you for coming by. It was a pleasure doing this.